So my name is Hjalte and I make games and stuff. And I made like all these games. So I'm just gonna go through really quick and pick out a few that I like. It all started when I played Bioshock for the first time and I really liked it. So I was like, okay, let's go to this school that supposedly teaches game development. Now it didn't really teach game development, but I did meet some like-minded people and we made this game together. And it was like a puzzle game. And we all decided to go together to a different school that supposedly taught game development. And while I was there, some hooded figure came to me in the night and told me about game jams. And I was like, holy shit, I fucking love game jams. And I made like all of these. And I quickly formed this idea in my head that actually games are more important than school, always. So basically my years there were sort of like, I would sit there at that computer and I would do a bunch of weird game dev stuff. Then I would go to school and be really sleep deprived because I was up till 3 a.m. And then I would go back and do it again. Yeah, it sort of went like that for a while until I started working on a bit of a more of a continuous project. And I kind of, it wasn't really going anywhere. Like I had art coming out and I had like systems and shit, but I didn't really have a really good plan, and I started to get this feeling like I'm not a real game dev because I don't have a real game. And so when school was over, I was like, I'm not going to university. Fuck that shit. It's time to make a real game. And I took I was going to do it in a month, and so I took this grid system I'd been working on, and I started putting down sprites. And after a month, I had something that sort of looked like a game, but it's not fun. It actually kind of sucked. But at this point I was too deep in. I was like, I need to make a real game. It doesn't even matter if it's fun anymore. I just need to, just keep going, just keep adding stuff. It doesn't even matter. And I made a game that has like multiple environments and bosses, but it wasn't very fun. But whatever, just had to get it out there. And the coolest part that came out of it was a couple months later when Matei asked if he could use it in Pixel Art Academy, and I was like, holy shit, I was so fucking proud when I got that message. And fun fact, I actually made this entire game like 2 years prior, and I just forgot about it until last year. Like, I found these GIFs, and I was like, wait, I made this game already. Anyway, I had a real game, but I also felt quite shit. So, thankfully, I had planned a trip to America with my friend Asker, where we were going to check out this GDC thing. And I went there by train during Train Jam, which was awesome. And Vice did me dirty in that documentary. Fuck you. But we had a great trip and stuff. And then, but after like a month, we started to feel like, oh, we just want to make games, man. So we crashed a dorm in Missouri and just stayed there for like a month illegally, and just were working on games all the time, going a little bit nuts. And mostly we were working on that one in the corner there where we just sort of draw spells out. And yeah, it was pretty cool. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking about this little low poly computer I had made and a PS1 shader. And a new idea sort of started to form about what if I took like a sort of Metal Gear Solid 1 type game, but then you also had this operating system that you could use to hack into everything in the game. So you would hack into an access point like this, and then you would get access to everything in the game, and you would be able to change the properties of things, so like turning a camera away so it wouldn't see you. And it got very complicated, but one of the coolest things was the guards AI. They would actually physically unlock doors, and someone would have to physically be in the CCTV room to be able to see you on the cameras. And I made this whole concept level, and one part here I'm turning on a generator which distracts the guard so he goes outside, and then I zoom in on the pin code to see what the code is. So later I can just go back and use that code to get in the room. And it was fucking awesome. I was so happy with it. And then I went on another Train Jam and I showed it to people and they were like, what the fuck is going on? It was a very complicated game, okay? So I went home with a broken spirit, but not to worry, soon enough I had a new idea, which was also cool and also overly complicated. And that was sort of like the idea of detective games having options. I hated that because like I'm not smart, so I didn't think of half of these options. And now the game basically just told me that this might be relevant to the case. And I never even thought about that. So I wanted to make a game where you had no dialogue options and everything was evidence. And yeah, it sort of looked like this, where you could, whenever someone said something, you could save that on a little note. And then you could use that to derive information about people. And you would literally not have dialogue options. You would just sort of click something in the world and then drag it on. And that would ask them about it. And then you could get more evidence that way. And you could ask other people about that stuff. And that was pretty cool, but it was time to go to university. So I moved in here, this building that totally didn't inspire anything. And I still, of course, thought that games were more important than school. So uni was more of a side hustle while I was making video games. But soon enough, once again, I started to feel like I wasn't a real game dev. So it was time to make a real game. And I could do it really quick over one summer. And so I made a super quick prototype of some animals that sort of go around. And I was like, this is kind of cool, and I can do this in one summer. And what do you know, by the end of the summer I actually had a game that sort of looked like something. But unfortunately, I remembered that Snakebird exists. And then I had a broken spirit again. But it was fine, because in the background, my friend and I had been getting really into these PlayStation 1 horror games that were getting popular at the time. And we thought, what if you merged PlayStation 1 with Soviet monuments like this one? Look, it's already low poly. It's perfect. So it was a brilliant idea. And we started doing some tests, and we were sort of offhandedly mentioned, like, what if we should add a car to this scene? And then I went to Korea, and then when I came back, my friend had made a car, so I was like, okay, let's make a drive. And I sort of made a drive. A drive as well as a Soviet car does, you know. And we put it on Twitter, and we started getting like numbers. And because we all know that exposure is definitely the same as money, we immediately started renting an office in downtown Copenhagen, which was not a great financial decision, until it led us to the Danish grant, and we were like, So we applied, and we got the grant, a very small grant, and I was like, holy shit, you can get money from this shit? And I was so excited about that I didn't even have time to think rationally, so I immediately quit my job and quit my university. Great job. And well, it doesn't always last that long, especially when you just have a small grant. So soon I was in a bit of trouble, and I decided to move to some small town in Sweden to cut down on costs. And I was still working on the game, but it was getting very technical. There were so many bugs, and it was just frustrating. So in the evenings, I started working on that little animal game again, and it started to look a bit better. And then I came with this offer to James. Like, what if I just stop paying rent and you publish my game? And somehow he said yes, and you know how it goes. Then we released the game. Phone release soon, TM. It was very fun. And yeah, now I'm just working on these two games while living with all of you guys. And I love you guys. Thank you.
Beautiful and inspiring, as always.